This is a scene of Paris rooftops. I mean, where else could it be? So this is another direct ink drawing. So the only pencil involved is I've literally put one dot on the paper where I wanted to put that first corner just to help me position this picture so that it has as much chance of fitting on the page as possible. So as always, I choose a shape to start with that I think I can draw fairly accurately, fairly easily, and it can be anywhere in the picture. In this case, it's fairly central. So in the lower half of this drawing, there's really mostly of the great Parisian chimneys with their chimney pots, but they are a relatively tricky structure to draw, although they're so simple. They often have very shallow perspective angles, which are still very important, which can make them a bit tricky to draw. Plus you have all the chimney pots breaking up the surface, and in this particular scene too, there are a lot of vents, air conditioning systems, aerials. There's a lot of roof furniture, for want of a better expression, in this picture. And while we can't include all of it, it would be a mistake to simplify things too much and to leave it out, because then it won't have the feel of being a genuine rooftop scene. So one of the individual things the artist has to choose here is what to leave in and what to take out. And these are the sorts of decisions that start to determine what your drawings look like. The other thing is how much detail in terms of the line work to do. Now, I have a great preference with line work to try not to run lines over each other. So where there's something such as, say, an aerial, I don't like just to draw it over the top of what's behind it, if you like. I'd rather draw the aerial first and then draw the lines behind, leaving a very slight break where they go through the aerial. That sometimes gets a bit difficult to do in practice, but it's my preferred choice. So I'm working on this foreground. It becomes a bit simpler, but basically from when I start with the first chimney, I'm always looking to see what I've already drawn and where the corner or the chimney pot or the roof line, whatever I'm drawing, where it lines up with what I've already drawn in the reference photo and then on my drawing. And if I get something not quite right, I try to correct it with the next part I draw, so that as much as possible, my proportions are correct. And sometimes in a drawing like this, I actually put a line over the photo, because if the photo is a bit unclear, it just helps me see more clearly what I'm doing. Now, there are lots of little bits where these chimneys go in and out, where different vents come up from within the building, carrying their own flue for smoke and fumes. So trying to include at least some of those, not to simplify things too much, or else we lose all the busyness which is so characteristic of this sort of scene. Now, often in these sorts of scenes, there are more windows, more of those wonderful dormer windows. There aren't so many, and they're more in the upper half of the photo, but I thought that created a nice composition where the lower half was really more of a focus on the chimney and on the rooftop hardware and the actual upper mansard windows. The dormer windows were more up towards the top. In the lower half, because this is also closer to us, I tend to do heavier line work. I would normally in my studio drawings use at least 2 grades of pen for this, if not 3. I'd use a 0.3 millimeter in the front, a 0.2 millimeter in the background, and quite possibly a 0.1 millimeter for the very top of this drawing, which creates a lighter effect as we move further away, which helps create a nice sense of depth. But that's really a topic for another video. So I'm really have done most of the chimneys in the lower half at this stage, and I'm starting to think and position for these windows. Now, they're a fairly important placement, so I spend a little bit of time just trying to work out getting them right, and not putting them too high or too low. In the end, I've positioned them, I suspect, just a fraction too high, like maybe 5 mil, but I get annoyed about things like that. But one of the great things with a scene such as this is if you don't get things quite right, as I said before, you can just rearrange the next thing that you draw just to bring it back into alignment as closely as you can. Usually the biggest tendency for a mistake in this is to leave too much space, so to not draw things tightly together enough, and so basically then running out of space, basically like blowing the whole drawing out. So it's really important to try and keep things tight. And where there are so many things overlapping as there are, it's sometimes better just to leave a bit of space when you draw things until you can finish something else. Sometimes you don't have the closest things already drawn, and so I leave those bits so that I'm not putting lines in the wrong place. Now I had probably this was the biggest problem for me, this rooftop area where there was a bit of an entertainment area made, because the photo wasn't very clear, and I made the mistake of still trying to draw the photo. And what I should have done was just created imaginary furniture there, or probably just put a few more pot plants than there really were. Pot plants are quite easy to draw, much easier than tables and chairs. So I probably should have done that. So if I was doing this again, that's what I do. Always work out what I'll do next time when you're drawing something, so that you can take that lesson, be quite conscious about it. I shouldn't have done that, I should have done this. So now I'm working more the rest of the buildings, and this feels much more straightforward because there isn't as much complexity, and I've done a lot of these windows. So again, though, how you choose to do the windows, how many panes you put in, whether you do them as open or closed, whether you do shutters that are back against the wall, or whether you do them half open or fully open or completely shut. Again, these are the sorts of choices you get to make according to what you're comfortable with and what you think will look good for your picture. I often feel that having the windows look more the same can actually have a better effect in a drawing such as this. So I tend to have more open perhaps than is sometimes the case in life. So I'm up to these furthest ones, and I'm trying to draw these parts up here with a quicker, lighter touch, which is partly easier because I've warmed up a little having drawn so much. This drawing overall probably took me about an hour and a half to do. I haven't added up the real life film sections that I've stitched together, but it was about an hour and a half, I'm pretty sure, that you're seeing in 9 minutes. So by now I've been drawing quite a bit, and I'm feeling quite comfortable with my lines, and that can be good too. And it's good to have for the furthest away points a lighter touch. And I've sort of reached the nice point now where I'm really kind of looking around and working out what bits haven't I drawn and doing those. But it's always a case of just start in a place and move out and reference off what you've already drawn. And these aerial roof scenes are great subject matter to practice referencing off the photo and off what you've drawn, because there is so much opportunity for doing that you get a lot of practice at it quickly, and yet if you don't get it completely right, it doesn't really matter, it's not so obvious. So it's a forgiving subject as well. So I think it's a really great choice, and I'm not going to put tone on this. I just want to leave it as line work for now. But when I do some tone videos, I might use some of these line drawings and put tone on them then. Hope you've liked. Well, how did you find that? Hi, I'm Stephen Travers. Do you think you're going to tackle something like that? Look, it can look very complicated when you first see it, but the very complexity in a scene such as that actually gives the artist a bit of room to move if things aren't quite right. I mean, there is some disentangling that's needed, and sometimes a little bit of simplification so as not to end up with a mess. But really, no one's going to notice if a chimney pot's not quite in the right place, or if you decide to leave out an aerial, or if you don't extend a vent high enough, or if there isn't the right number of windows. I mean, it's just not going to matter in a drawing like that. So there's also a lot of, if you like, fun in doing it, where the pressure is off, the exactness, and you can get into the capturing of the feel with your line work. So can I really recommend that you give this sort of subject matter a go? Anyway, the important thing is whatever you do with your drawing, have fun with it. I'll see you next time. Bye.